Welcome to episode 239 of In Touch with iOS, the show that talks about iPhone, iPad, Apple Watch, Apple TV, and related technologies. I'm your host, Dave Ginsburg, and my guest this week is Guy Serle. How you doing, Guy?
Hey. How you doing, Jeff? Oh, my God. I've got Jeff Gammon on the brain.
Yeah, Jeff's not
how are you doing tonight, Dave?
I'm doing good. Jeff is not here this week, but Ben Roethig is here. He's back a second 2 weeks in a row here. Glad to have you here.
Yes, I am. And
thanks.
And also not Jeff.
Yes. Also, and he's wearing pants.
Yes, I think we're all here.
I mean, it is just pretty much from the head, or you're not seeing that much of me on the camera.
Some people say they see too much of me.
Oh, yeah. That's sometimes, but
yeah.
But we got a good show for you this week. Lots of news, and as always, iOS 16.3 was released, and security keys. And I'm going to continue on my In Touch with Mac topic. We're going to keep doing that in the show. We started that last week. We'll keep that going. Got some stuff to talk about there, and all kinds of other fun things we'll hit. But let's just go ahead and dig into the news for this week. First story here is Apple is giving some older iPhone OS updates going back to the iPhone 5S. So Apple has provided iOS 12.5.7 as well as on the Mac too. The Big Sur 11.7.3 and other updates for older devices that can't be updated to their latest releases. So that's covering iOS 12.5.7. They're also doing iOS 15.7.3. I'll talk about that in a bit. Same thing with the iPad. So I guess there was some pretty nasty bug in this version, and they decided, I think we better patch this because there's still a lot of people still using all these old devices. Why, I don't know, but especially if going back to the 5S and the 6. And so, but I'm glad Apple's being responsible for this and then making sure that they keep these devices up to date. What do you think, Ben?
Well, I mean, you see a lot of these older devices in enterprise or other business deployments.
Yeah.
They don't upgrade all that often, especially if they're still working. But I mean, if Apple has the analytics on this, if they are seeing enough of these still in the wild, it's a good call to get them updated.
Yeah, they have to be, because you got old iPod Touches probably still out there. They're running on iOS 12.5, and so yeah, definitely important. What do you think, Guy?
Well, in related news, Samsung is now updating Galaxy 6s, so get right out there and get that.
Yeah.
And I'm being facetious, of course. I mean, this is unheard of in the mobile world, to be supporting devices that are 5, 6, 7 years old, and the fact that Apple is doing it, hey, congrats to them. And granted, for all the people talking about Apple's planned obsolescence as far as OS updates go, you can believe what you want, but at the same time, they're providing updates for these old phones where 99 out of 100 Android makers and carriers and Google are not. So, you pays your money, you takes your chances, and I'll stick with iPhone.
Yep.
And I think that shows where Apple is different than Samsung and the rest of the Android makers. They're trying to make a buck. Apple sees this as a computing platform.
Yeah. And I mean, that's part of the reason why their retention rate is typically in the 85 to 90%, which is, again, when you're talking about technology, is almost unheard of.
Yeah, absolutely. In related news to that, iPad OS is 15. There are still people out that are not ready to upgrade to 16 iOS 16 and iPad OS 16.3. So they did release 15.7.3 with a security update, because there are folks on the 2014's iPad Air 2 and the 2015's iPad Mini will continue to get those iOS 15 iPad OS updates. But there are still some holdbacks of people who want to still stay on iOS 15 for some reason. So they haven't updated yet.
8 years gone, still being updated.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in this version, this is iOS 15 and iPad OS 15. So it's just the last version. So good to see that they're continuing to update. It's kind of unusual because I don't ever recall Apple really keeping current devices that can go to the latest version, that people are still hanging on this long, because it's been quite a while since iOS 16 came out. What do you think, Ben?
I think just showing how powerful Apple devices are these days, and that people are holding on to them longer.
Yep.
I mean,
well, they cost more. So
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of costs. So it's good to see. So just if you are still sporting those devices, be sure you're running in those updates. Super important, because also there was a pretty serious flaw with that, and as I mentioned here. So with the security button, there was a vulnerability that was discovered, some WebKit confusion errors, and we don't need to get too technical on that, but that's why it's so important that you run these updates as soon as possible, because there were some pretty serious bugs in the world of security. So, next story, a different topic here. Tweetbot. We're so sad that what happened to them with the whole Twitter situation. They have now launched their app for Mastodon called Ivory, and it's now out in they just basically released it. They just had to get it out because they're just basically they lost their Tweetbot app. So
APIs,
why not? Yeah. And everything else. So they've been testing Ivory for a while, and then they got it out, and I'm excited to see that. And I'm definitely going to support them because they released the app, and all of us have, I don't know about you, Guy, but I know many of us have moved to Mastodon, and at least one way or another.
Oh, I have a Mastodon account.
Okay, so it's definitely a great app. I know Ben and you and I both, and I believe we recommended it on the Mac Show on the British Tech Network. The app Ice Cubes. There's another app that's out there. You've been talking about that a lot on Twitter. So have you tried Ivory?
Oh yeah.
Have you tried Ivory?
I have. I think it is really, really well done.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, if Jeff wouldn't have told me about Ice Cubes like a week ago,
yeah, me too,
I would probably be on Ivory right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like having a 1 and a 1A. They are both fantastic apps.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm seeing a lot more and more traction on Mastodon, honestly. I mean, every day I'm seeing more people joining up. I've been following people that I've been following on Twitter, and it's definitely something, if you haven't explored it, it's a little on the geeky side. It's a little bit of a challenge because there's so many, the whole server thing. I don't want to get into all that discussion, but it's getting there. I think it's getting there, and Mastodon is going to be something for the future. The way Twitter has gone. So you know what server you're on, Guy? Because I don't recall seeing you on.
I have no idea. But the nice thing about Mastodon, especially, is it's not like a single gatekeeper. You've got gatekeepers for every single community.
Yep.
And so if you're into Star Wars, or you're into Transformers or whatever like that, you can join groups that support those particular groups. And if you got somebody who comes in and starts acting like a troll, well, the admins can kick them out because they control their own servers. Whereas, if you have, I guess you have like loose affiliations in Twitter, but it's not like it's, where you can kind of control your own destiny. That's not how Twitter works, but it is the way how Mastodon works.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So if you're willing to take the time to sign up, and it's a harder process than it is for most social networks. Mm-hmm. And there's things that you like to follow, things that you like to do. You'll probably find one or multiple groups on Mastodon that'll support it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go on to the next story. Apple is preparing to re-release the revamped HomeKit architecture that was removed from iOS 16.2. Oh, that was a bit of a blunder. It was Apple with iOS 16.2 update had introduced an updated underlying architecture for HomeKit and the Home app, but it was pulled a week after launch because there were so many bugs in the installations and At the time, Apple said the removal was temporary and the upgrade would be returning soon. Well, apparently it's nearing its reintroduction with a backend code that's indicating that Apple is preparing a version 2 and is testing it internally. So other than stating that the architecture would be made available soon, Apple has provided no timing. So probably maybe not even now. It's not going to be out now for 16.3 that's out now. Probably the next launch of beta, probably we expect 16.4 to be released, which hasn't as of yet. Especially with the release of the second gen HomePod we talked about last week. They did mention the sound recognition feature coming in a spring update would require the revamped home architecture. So, gosh, what a mess. I'm very, very, very disappointed with how this happened with Apple. Guy, what do you think?
Well, and the weird thing is they've just joined, I can't remember the name of it, that alliance that's supposed to kind of build a bridge between all these different home automation apps
and Matter
hardware. Yeah, Matter. And in my particular case, I have one device that is controlled through HomeKit in the house. Every time I talk to, I've been married for 30 plus years and I know my wife. And every time I start talking about home automation, she says, well, you can just turn on a lamp from the other room. And she just gives me this look like, why the hell would I want to turn on a lamp from another room? I'll walk into the room, I'll turn on the lamp. And it's like, okay. So, the more technology I introduce into the house, the more cranky my wife gets. So I'm very careful about what I bring into the house. So that's all I have at the moment as far as home automation goes. And I will dabble in it a little bit more once I kind of figure out what it is I want to use it for. And so far, home security, it's like, CCTV, okay, for the most part, the use cases just don't really appeal to me. I can have my blinds open on a schedule. Crickets.
Yeah. I agree. You sporting some HomeKit stuff, Ben?
Oh yes. Every light I have in my living area is currently HomeKit compatible.
Okay.
For me, it is a requirement. I do suffer from night blindness. So it will take if I walk into a fully dark room and turn on the light, it's going to take me a while to adjust, and I'll probably trip over about 3 things on my way to the light.
Damn cat.
But he'll be right under my foot. In fact, he's right here. But I upgraded to the new architecture during the beta. I am lucky it did not brick me in any way.
Yeah. Some people did.
Yeah. But, I mean, the fact that Apple released that without doing their due diligence is something that has me deeply concerned about their software evaluation process.
Honestly, I think, and Apple has shown this time and time again, if it's something that they're really excited about, they go all in. So things like iTunes and some of the other services, it's like, we're not going to be like Google and cancel it after just a few years, something like that. So they've gone all in for services and they put a lot of time and they put a lot of effort into it. And then it's like, the Apple Car, the Apple TV, home automation, all these things that they talk about them when they have these events. And you'll see obviously people that are very well coached on what to say about what Apple's going to do with with this technology say all the right things, and then nothing happens. And it's kind of like the writing on the wall. I mean, I was when the latest Apple TV came out, I have to admit I was stunned that they released a new Apple TV, because I just didn't think that they just gave a damn about it anymore.
Yeah, they do now.
So I wonder as well, is this push to Matter mean that they're kind of dropping a lot of support for HomeKit, and then they'll just piggyback off of whatever Matter does?
I mean, Matter. I mean, HomeKit does form the basis of Matter. Like the Qi 2, Apple kind of got sick of what was out there and just kind of offered its own technology to move everything along kind of in their own direction.
Yeah. So, all right, let's move on. Next topic. According to Bloomberg's Mark Gurman, he's always very good with Apple news and rumor. That he's pretty spot on with his Power On newsletter from Bloomberg. He believes there is not actively any work on a successor to the HomePod Mini. Just after the new release of the full-sized HomePod, which shocked everybody last week. Many users are starting to ask if there's going to be an update to the Mini model, but at this point, they don't believe Apple is going to be working on such a product. Latest HomePod doesn't include any major new functions that aren't already in the $99 Mini. So it's an obvious reason not to update the model. They got the temperature sensor that's been added and the humidity sensor in the Mini. But if you have the first gen HomePod like I do, I think you do as well, Ben. We don't have that luxury with the HomePod, the first gen HomePod. So I'm not surprised.
They, just recently activate them in the Mini?
Yeah, 16.3, 16.3, which just got released. We'll talk about it.
So they were there, but they were like, we'll get to it later.
Well, we'll sit on it for 2 years.
Until the software update finally came through for it. So, but the HomePod, the first gen HomePod doesn't have the capability of it. So, but the second gen will. So, guys, have any other thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think that I think Gurman is wrong. The HomePod Mini, I think, was kind of a surprise to Apple, and I think the success of the HomePod Mini gave them the impetus to go ahead and make a bigger one. And it's kind of like the old saying: if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. So if the if the HomePod Mini is still working great, still sounds great, still does everything that people expect a smart speaker like that to do, then there's no incentive to make a new one. That doesn't mean that they're not still working on it.
And kind of elaborate on that. Yeah. When it comes to the processor cores, the S7 is actually only one generation newer when it comes to the actual efficiency core chips inside. So there's not going to be that much of a difference. I mean, Apple could definitely upgrade the speakers in it, maybe, but I don't see them having any real incentive to upgrade it. If anything, they may wait until the big HomePod is updated next to do that.
Well, if they'll even update the big HomePod anytime soon. I mean, we waited 3 years, 4 years for the Apple TV. The original big HomePod was never updated. Oh. And as far as smart speakers go, they kind of come and go into market all the time. And you see them, and then there's a big splash, and then you don't hear about them anymore. Apple seems to have built theirs, God, I hate to say this, right the first time, that there wasn't really a need or a big push required to update them. So as long as they keep working and doing what they're designed to do, come up with another use case, and I'm sure Apple will incorporate that into the next version.
Yep. And as far as the competition goes, when's the last time Sonos updated the One?
Yeah.
Sorry, who?
Sonos.
What company was that? Not familiar.
You're funny. Oh, you're funny. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next story. The Apple did do some adjustments to their trade-ins, the trade-in values for the iPhones, the Macs, and more. Apple trade-in values have decreased up to $80, and most Android smartphones also went down, but Mac trade-in values remained unchanged or increased. While some Apple Watch models increased, some decreased. So, the article here in Mac Rumors, a list of all the phones that can be traded in. So like the 13 Pro Max went down to 570 from 650. So the prices are starting to drop a little bit. I don't need to go through the whole list here, but even the iPad Pros go up to $445, and then you got the Mini that's up to $240. So ain't much. This is kind of disturbing. I don't know if this is all MacBook Pros, but you got up to 200. That goes to 670. I traded my MacBook Pro. Intel 2019.
Wow.
That'd be a big screen. 2019 model, and it was they gave me like $1,100 for it. So back then, so it obviously is dropping. Like I have the Series 7 showing only at the 160, which is not much. So. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, Apple's products tend to hold their value in trade, but a lot of times people will just turn around and just, they want to spend the time, sell it on eBay or sell it somewhere else. So make a little bit more of an extra buck. But what do you think, Ben?
I mean, first, always shop around when you're trading in your device.
Yep.
I mean, don't ever take just what the first offer is. But I mean, especially with the Intel Macs, we're getting to the end of that chapter. So obviously they're not going to be worth as much.
No.
And I mean, Apple is not doing the trade-in themselves.
Yeah.
They're using a partner.
Usually a third party, right?
Yep. So it's honestly not surprising. These prices adjust all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. But a lot of people do it just for convenience. They, I don't want to deal with it. So I just, okay. If not as heavy people like us tend to probably would do that as often.
Sure. Sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah. Okay. So we, it all depends on what you want to do, but yeah, it's an easy process. I've done it many times but I would have a challenge with these prices. I agree because they're kind of low on the low end on some of these devices.
You want to get the most value out of your Apple devices.
Yeah.
Use them until they fall apart, or until they can't be updated anymore.
That too.
Because 9 times out of 10, whatever it is that you're doing with your Mac can be done just as easily on the one that you already own as compared to going to a new one. Right. So use them until the wheels fall off, and then don't worry about what your trade-in is.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's how it goes. Speaking of devices, Apple is starting to begin to start selling the iPhone 13. It's starting actually in Europe, and the US is going to follow soon. So you'll be able to they should expand to the US soon, and as the models are now listed in the Apple refurbished store, so they are selling refurbished models. So it's good to see that the Apple will now continue on with these models. So check it out. Obviously with the big thing happening possibly soon with iPhone maybe having to be switched to USB-C, that's going to be something that's going to drive a lot of these folks to want to buy these older models. I mean, I talk to people who are still buying iPhone 12s brand new, which Apple was still selling. So, as it always does every year, the past model will end up in the refurb store. So, you guys have any thoughts on that?
The one thing that might actually push me to buy the next iPhone will be if it has USB-C. The Lightning connector, it's a great device. It's a great cable, and it has served Apple very, very well. But it no longer makes sense. It's the iPhone is basically really some iPod.
iPod Touch.
iPod Pros. Yeah. Basically it's dead technology. It's really not used by that many Apple devices anymore. And Apple frankly should have probably switched to USB-C either with the 12 or the 13. And I was definitely surprised when they didn't do it with the 14.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think? Ben?
I mean, the current iPhones are ridiculously fast since they are based around a chip or cores that are designed for an actual computer.
Yep.
You're going to use these phones for significantly longer than previous generation phones. So, I mean, if you are buying outright, an iPhone 13 isn't all that different than an iPhone 14.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yep. That's why I stuck with the 13.
Yeah, that's why I'm still stuck with the 12.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to buy outright and can get a deal, go get it.
Absolutely. All right. Next story here. Apple pauses in-house Wi-Fi chip development. Shifts in internal development priorities have caused Apple to indefinitely suspend the development of its own Wi-Fi chips for future iPhones. Apple had been rumored to be bringing modem development internal for years. They wanted to reduce their reliance on companies like Broadcom. Then the latest data shows the Wi-Fi chip development has gone into some potential barriers, and Apple is redistributing their resources. We've been hearing a lot that they've been redistributing their resources on a lot of things as of late. So this is probably not surprising. Again, this is a rumor, so you don't have facts that they are actually indeed doing this, but they're pretty solid words about the fact that they probably are, because they done it with their processor chips with the M1, the M2, and why not do it with the modem chips too, right? What do you think, Ben?
I mean, honestly, this is the division that Apple bought from Intel.
Right.
Intel sold that division because they were constantly underperforming, even in some of the old iPhones that had Intel Wi-Fi chips. I mean, honestly, if you're going to have that same IP that is worse than Broadcom and Qualcomm, God, I think I'm mixing up company names.
Qualcomm.
The changing who owns that division isn't going to matter.
Yep.
It's just, I mean, they just don't have the talent there in that division.
Yeah, no, I agree. Any thought on that, Guy?
Yeah. I wonder how much of this is underperforming tech versus tired of Qualcomm and Broadcom suing us over stuff that doesn't really bring us any money.
Yeah.
So if Broadcom and Qualcomm's Wi-Fi chips are quote unquote, best in the market, then what does it really bring Apple to come up with something that's inferior?
Right.
They still have the talent, as far as I know, and the resources to continue development. But to put it on the back burner when they don't have anything better than what's already available, I think just makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. They say too that with the move to Wi-Fi 6E, that probably is going to end up happening when the iPhone 15 comes out. It's going to be potential issues to that product category, and then not having their own chip might be troublesome with that. So, but I don't expect this happen. It's probably up to 2025 before I would see anything with this. Is really where we're at with that. So, all right, that's what we got for the news for this week. Let's move on to our topics. As we always talk about is beta, and it starts off. Well, right now there is no beta. It's on. We're right at iOS 16.3. It just got released to the public this week, and there's been lots of new features and all kinds of stuff that's happened. And I kind of wanted to go through a bit of a discussion. We've been reviewing it as the beta announcements happened. So you got iOS 16.3. You have iPadOS 16.3. You have watchOS 9.3. You have tvOS 16.3. Have all been released, let's start off with the iOS 16.3. It was the third major update to the iOS 16 operating system. It came back out in September, so we've had it for about almost 6 months now, getting close. And they added an update to the Freeform app. The Apple Music Sing and advanced data protection and more was added before. They did do some tweaking with Emergency SOS to prevent accidental emergency calls. Apparently, that was happening quite a bit, especially when people were skiing and thinking like that they were falling, and the Emergency SOS was being called. So they did some other stuff like a new Unity wallpaper to honors Black History Month, and the security keys, which we'll touch a little bit here. of course, they needed it because of the support of the HomePod second gen. So 16.3 was needed because hasn't been released yet. I think the HomePod second gen comes out in around February 3rd, I believe, as we record this. So a numerous other fixes and internal stuff. So you're going to expect all kinds of bugs and fixes and all that fun stuff that's going to happen with that. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see if things go. So, but the big thing that was released was security keys, and security keys are a way of now being able to have any third-party security key for an account, but you need authentication when logging into a new device, otherwise accessible by an Apple ID. I don't think this is going to be something that the everyday user is going to potentially take advantage of, because it does require a lot of people. I mean, I use a Yubikey for work, and a lot of other people probably do as well. The Yubikeys are very popular when it comes to security, an extra layer of security when you're signing into an account. I don't know if you're going to want to take a Yubikey with a lightning connector on the end of it and have to plug it into your iPhone and put your fingerprint on there to add as an additional security key instead of the verification codes. But it just shows you how serious Apple really is with security, and that's a bit of a trend of this show this week. We'll talk about that in the Mac a little bit in a bit here. But what do you guys think with the security with this? Is this something that you would utilize, Ben?
My first question is, why didn't Apple do this sooner?
Yeah, because it's been a while.
Yeah, because I mean, FIDO2 keys are the industry standard. Mm-hmm. Most of them do also come with an NFC chip.
Right.
So being able to depend not only on Apple for my security verification, but have a key that will work on both my Mac and my iPhone, and have that stuck in a fireproof lockbox, that honestly has me a lot more secure than relying it just on a piece of paper that Apple makes me print out.
Right. What about you, Kai? Is this something you would use? Do you think?
Probably not. I'm reasonably happy with the level of security that I get in Mac OS and iPhone OS. That having to keep track of another device just doesn't appeal to me. And I think that it's not going to appeal to a lot of people, especially the older generation, that they just want stuff to work. And if keeping stuff working means carrying around or having available yet another thing that they have to keep track of, it's going to turn a lot of people off, in my opinion.
I got a link in the show notes to the actual support article that kind of gives the requirements of what the security key is needed. I mean, you obviously have to be running the latest OS across all the devices, two-factor authentication, modern web browser, and then using a device like a Yubikey where you just put that in as a fingerprint reader is one of the reasons why you do it. They have a list of what the ones that are the right keys to use. One thing else they did say that doesn't work with security keys on an Apple ID is iCloud for Windows. No surprise there. And then older devices won't work. If you have a child account or a managed Apple ID, those aren't supported at all. And then Apple Watches that are paired with family members' iPhones aren't supported. You have to set it up as your own.
Lots of conditions.
So there's a lot of conditions. So this is going to be, a constant here as far as the things that you got to deal with when it comes to that. Under Mac OS Ventura 13.2, you'll have the hardware security support with that as well. So you got a lot of added things here. So that kind of is the highlight of what 16.3 is all about. Honestly, it's not a huge update. There's just incremental things that happen, but it's not nowhere near as a major update. As Apple continues to evolve the OS, I'm sure 16.4 when that starts in beta, we'll have some new things to talk about, but ain't much. So some of the other devices like the Apple released Watch OS 9.3. And really not much to talk about there, honestly, other than the new wallpapers and much else. I don't see there's really anything that really stands out, like some bug fixes. That's really all it is with the watch.
Fixes.
That's their favorite term there.
Yeah.
And then tvOS is the same thing. You generally don't get too much with that's out with there as well. It's very minor as far as updates
honestly, we had my wife was just telling me something weird just happened, and we have a slightly older Apple TV upstairs, where she turned it on and the volume was all the way off. So she went to turn it back up, and it went up like 2-3 clicks and then just like slammed immediately back down to 0. So she did what she normally does when something weird happens with the Apple TV, unplugged it and plugged it back in again, and it seemed to be working okay. I don't know, because I haven't checked to see if that's on the latest version of tvOS, but it was just something odd, and I didn't think about it until I saw that the new version of tvOS had just come out.
Yeah. Nope, I didn't see any really much of the bug there. I don't know if you saw anything, Ben.
No, I've had absolutely no problem with tvOS.
Yep, same here. So HomePod got 16.3, and it was interesting. Both tvOS and HomePod OS got delayed by a day because iOS 16.3 came out earlier this week. I think it was like Tuesday, and I believe, or maybe Monday, and then HomePod OS and tvOS, because I kept checking. I was like, oh, yeah, why isn't it updated yet? Everybody kept on Twitter saying, no, it hasn't been released yet. What? So they delayed it by a day. So I guess, I don't know, maybe they wanted to make sure everything was right. But the biggest thing was with the HomePod 16.3 was the humidity and temperature sensing in the HomePod minis, and will be in the second gen, like we mentioned earlier. The Find My improvements were another big thing because those weren't working as well. The Siri commands have been improved and some updates there. But if Jeff Gamet was here, he would be telling me right away there's probably still some bugs because he's always having a problem with getting these HomePods to work right and to sync. I mean, it was the same with me when I did the update, and the pair I have in a pair. Sometimes it gets funky, but as of late, it's been working good because I have I have my Apple TV hooked up over next to me here on my TV here, watching TV, and it's great. I love being able to listen to it from my HomePods, and it works out really well. So, yeah, check it out. I'm gonna start. I want to play with the HomePod Mini and see how the humidity and temperature sensor works. And check out
really well.
Have you tried it? Excuse me.
Oh yeah. In fact, I just checked it while we're on the show here. And so far, it seems to be fairly accurate in the readings. It had gotten a few degrees colder, from what I could tell here in the room, and the temperature sensor completely backed that up.
Good. All right, and then one other notable thing is iOS 16.3 did fix some pesky CarPlay bugs that broke the Find My support in Siri, so they've improved that. CarPlay's always got some, so that was a bit of a problem with CarPlay, and CarPlay continues to evolve. We'll talk about that just a minute here, another topic here, but it is continuing to evolve here. So I would think we pretty much covered everything that was released. Unless you guys have anything else you wanted to add to that.
No.
Let's talk a little bit about our In Touch with Macs segment here. A couple things I wanted to mention. The Mac Mini and the MacBook Pro have slower solid state speeds than previous models. It's been reported as
DM2?
Yeah. So they got people out there been doing some teardowns and testing, and some YouTube bloggers have revealed that the 256 gig model only has a single storage chip, which is the same configuration as the M1, and which had two 128 chips. Difference explains why the new model has a slower SSD and multiple NAND chips for allowing faster speeds. So they did confirm it with doing some disk speed testing, and so it's interesting. It was an interesting tidbit. Same thing with the MacBook Pros. They really hadn't seen much else with that. So I'm kind of surprised about that, especially being a processor jump as it is, and they want to sell more Macs. And I was kind of surprised. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Well, why would they? Did they say anything about storage that was above 512? Or was it just the 256 and 512?
No, they said the 512 was having a problem as well. And when they were,
what about the 1 terabyte and up?
1 terabyte, there wasn't any mention of that. So that's because the increased size.
Yeah. Yeah. On the previous models that like the one that I have,
I got the M1.
It had 256 chips in a RAID configuration. The RAID configuration is just plain faster than a single chip.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, either money or supply chain, they're using a single chip in the base models now.
Yep.
Maybe that was all that was available.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still having supply side issues.
Yeah.
Or supply chain issues.
It's not as bad as it was. I mean,
no,
I think, with me doing a lot of purchasing as of late at work, that it looks like stuff is coming in pretty quick. So, I just put an order in for a M2 Max MacBook Pro, and it's going to be about 5 to 7 days as far as shipping. So that's not bad for that you have to
brand new.
You got to put in a special order for that. So, the other thing that I found here, I thought this was interesting. This is a Mac app that was discovered in a 9to5 Mac. I talked about this. It's a way to set custom dock settings when you're on different displays. Mac OS always had an issue with the dock and customizing the dock. I always had a challenge with that because the dock is, especially when I have 2 screens going, and if it's on one screen and I go down to my other screen, then it moves and hard to navigate and to get to. So they have this new free app called HiDock, and it does lets you do setting up different dock settings and link into different display combinations, and that shows here in the article with the screenshot here that allows you to go between your multiple displays, your built-in and your external, and so I think it's kind of cool, and it was free, which does
look kind of cool,
which is nice. So it doesn't cost you a dime to try it out, and if you don't like it, you gotta take it off. So check that out in the Mac.
Well, forget about it.
Forget about it. Other thing I found interesting is the fact that this was a great article in Macworld about Mac's security is so good that sending used M1 Macs to the scrap heap because people aren't making sure that they take their Apple ID off, because if you don't, it goes into activation lock, and then I seem to remember you kind of experienced that in years past, buying a computer from somebody, and that's the thing, you have to get the Apple ID off. But now with the new M1 Max and the security chips that are in there now, if it isn't removed, there's no way. It's basically a brick. I mean, you got to make sure you're removing the account from the Mac before you sell it. And unfortunately,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
This kind of came up over on Facebook in the Mac of the Future group, where there was a link to an eBay sale for something. And when I was looking at that, I happened to notice that there was another listing for a M1 MacBook Pro that had an activation lock. And my first thought was, well, this probably could be one of the machines that was taken out of an Apple store by, snatch and grab kind of thing.
Yep.
Anything that has, even for parts, anything that has an activation lock on it, I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. If you sell your Mac and you haven't wiped it clean, including removing your Apple account, frankly, you should be banned from ever selling another Mac to anybody else. It's not that hard to do. It's really not. So just do it, and don't make life difficult for the next poor slob that has to use your Mac.
Yeah.
Just don't do that.
Yeah, please don't. Anything you want to add, Ben?
I was going to say, M1 Macs are basically iPhones or iPads running Mac OS.
Yep. So
you're going to see the same caveats with them. Either when buying one secondhand, either make sure you can test it yourself,
right,
or make sure whatever's whatever service you're buying from has a policy where you can get your money back if it is activation locked.
Right. So,
and not mentioned in the ad.
So be aware.
Yeah.
Be aware.
And always ask questions.
Yep. 9 to 5 Mac had another good article here I wanted to talk a little bit about is the adoption of electric vehicles have obviously grown, incredibly. And not just, we always think of Tesla but there's a ton of EVs out there these days. And, many EVs are actually supporting CarPlay. Of course, Tesla and is not. Tesla and Rivian are not, but a lot of the others are, and Ford, the Mach-E, and Volkswagen, and the Kias, and the Chevy Bolt, and many others. So basically, what they've did is they talked about some of the best EV apps specific for our electric vehicle, and one of the most important ones is trying to where your nearest charging stations are, and charging stations are very prevalent around the country now these days. I mean, there's just so many electric vehicles that people are always thinking, oh, how the hell am I going to get my car charged? And well, it's not going to be a problem. So the nice thing with CarPlay, it does have the integration with that. Whether you're using all whatever maps you're using, you can use Apple Maps, Google Maps. If you use Waze, you like Waze. It does a better route planner. It does have another thing called Electrify America, which is an alternative to Tesla's supercharge network. And there's like over 800 stations across the U.S. So I don't have an EV, so none of us here do. So it's just, but for those of you who do have EVs, it's something to check out because I'm glad to see that everything is more and more things are being integrated into to CarPlay. Now, Apple obviously, as we talked about earlier last year when they introduced it at WWDC, is their new CarPlay system where it's going to be working with the car manufacturers where they're immersing everything into the dash as far as being a CarPlay front end. I'm going to be curious to see that in person when that comes out, and so it's got some. I think CarPlay's got a lot of future ahead here. So, you guys, any comments on that?
Love CarPlay.
Yes. The other thing, especially for EV owners, having an app that will factor in what kind of car charger there are, because there are different types of fast charge on it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these apps will factor that into the route. So that could save you a whole lot of hassle on a long range EV trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So check that out. And it's good to know about. So another tip here I wanted to talk about here is how to fix the HomePod and the Home app repeatedly asking for your Apple ID to a password and failing to authenticate. As you're entering the Apple ID and the iCloud password in the Home app on your iPhone or iPad, but it repeatedly fails to authenticate, there's some common causes that how that could happen. Update your iCloud account. Make sure that your iCloud account is signed in and you keep it up to date, and make sure it's signed in. Because I get those all the time. So you got to resync it. When they've had that terms and conditions update that happened, there was a bit of an issue with the Apple TV where you had to use your iPhone in order to authenticate the terms and conditions for the iCloud account on your Apple TV. You're like, well, okay, what if I don't have an iPhone? Some people don't. Yeah, well, they shouldn't be doing that. And go through some of the other things as far as in the Home app, making sure that you are signing in incorrectly. It could be stuck. It may not be working. If you don't know your iCloud password, that could be a bit of a problem. It's very important that you have that you know what the password is and you have all the security questions in place. So when you get the challenge that it can unlock the account to do so, because Apple's not going to give it to you. I can tell you that.
No,
try all the time. And have to call it. You can't quit the Home app and reopen it. You could force quit the app like you do on the iPhone. But something to do that. Another suggestion is, maybe if you're using a VPN, not everybody does that, but if you have a VPN on your iPhone, make sure you turn that off and disable it and check to see why that might be some cause of it not being able to sync. So some good tips there as far as going into the home app and doing that, you could also for the HomePod, you can restart your HomePod. You can go in and restart the HomePod. A lot of times you can just unplug it. Like the guy said earlier, his wife's unplugging the Apple TV, so you could probably do the same thing with the HomePod. I've done that many times because it just gets glitchy. So some good tips in there. To check that out. I think I want to mention, I've mentioned this before, but I think it's worth mentioning again. I put the links here in the show notes. Is Apple is very good at giving you the user guides, being able to access the user guides. And the nice thing about the user guides is the fact that they have web-based you download books and you have the books, but of course that gets outdated pretty quickly. They do have the books in the Apple Books store that you can download. And I have links just to the iPhone and the iPad. But you also have web guides that are always updated because they're real time. As each OS gets updated, it's going to update all the information there too, and that's a great resource to have and have a bookmark for it. So I've got links in the show notes here for the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple Watch, and the Apple TV. You also could add these to your home screen on your iPhone or your iPad for that matter, just like you normally do. If you add a link to the home screen, and then that just brings you to the web page, and then it's always there. And it's a live link, so it works really great when it comes to that. So have you guys used those before?
No, I'm generally, my Google foo is enough to get me where I need to go.
I mean, I've read them book or front to cover or cover to cover in the past.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're in the age of YouTube, so
this is true. But it's a good reference. I like that. I mean, I got I got magazines and digital magazines and all that stuff. So
yeah, you still got the tips and tricks book back there, I see.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. That's an old book, actually. I have that in there.
I'm in that book.
Are you?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to pull that out. Look, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Well, you remember I was talking about the iWeb thing.
Okay.
That's in there.
So are you quoted?
Yeah, I got like a whole little chapter and section there.
Oh my God. Look at that. I had that book and I didn't even know that. So that's great. I'll check that out. A couple more tips before we wrap up here. One I wanted to talk about was how to report spam texts on the iPhone. There's a lot of phishing attempts that go on your iPhone when it comes to these sucker people, the scum of earth that send you these messages all the time. The best ones are when you end up on a whole chain of like 10 or 15 different numbers, and then you get these morons that are responding back to it and say, "Stop, take me off," and expletives and all that stuff. And I don't even want to reply back and tell them, "Hey guys, you're wasting your time. It's not going to work."
All you're doing is verifying your email.
Yeah, verifying your phone number.
Somebody actually has it. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm still getting them, and the messages that came through like 5-6 weeks ago, and people are still responding to them. It's like, guys, stop. So really, what you have to do is when you go into stopping text messages on the iPhone, and I'll have some information in the show notes how to do this. Is you tap the conversation containing that spam message, and then you should see report junk that appears right at the bottom of the spam message, but you also can delete it, and once you delete the message, delete and report junk will work. Unfortunately, just like spam, when you get an emails, the same thing is going to happen with messages. So it's
a different sender.
Yeah, but if you do get this is a good tip. If you do get a message that doesn't give the option to report spam to Apple, you can still report it to the carrier. And the way you could do that is if you long press the message that came in, then you copy it. Don't click any links in there, of course, if there's anything in there.
Yeah.
If you click the back arrow and return to the main conversation screen, you can compose. You click the compose icon and send a new message. Then paste that message in there, and then you can send it to the to field. Is the number is 7726, and then what that'll do is that'll send the message to your carrier, and you'll get a notifications then saying "Hi, this is AT&T," or "Hi, this is T-Mobile. Your text was received." That's a standard number, so the number is 7726.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. So I thought this would be a great tip to talk about today. And you send that to your carrier, and the carrier will add that to their list of spam messages, and they'll see see it from the text reports that they do that. So thought that was a great tip for that. So one more tip I want to talk about here is what can you do if you can't copy and paste texts from an iPhone app? Because you do get into some situations where you can't copy text. You know how you can tap and try to copy a text in a particular application, and a lot of times the apps don't allow you to do that. But this is kind of a good trick in do this. What you can do is you actually can just take a screenshot of the screen itself, and it'll go into the photos. Then you can go into the photos, that photo that you've taken, the screenshot, and then tap it, and then live text will come up and allows you to bring up and go to the desired text that you want to copy. And then you can just bring that up and copy it and then paste it into any other app that you need to copy. And this comes in handy, like maybe you're converting currency, or if you're there may be some foreign language words that are hard to copy, or if an app doesn't allow you to do it, or that kind of stuff. Those are two great tips that you can do as far as copying and pasting tasks. So a couple good tips for this week, and looks like unless you guys say anything else, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up for this week. Thanks you guys, and thanks to everybody here. And that's a wrap for this week. Please send your comments, questions, and suggestions to our email address, which is feedback@intouchwithios.com. You can follow us on Twitter @intouchwithios. Support the show by buying me a coffee at intouchwithios.com/coffee. We really appreciate it. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/intouchwithios. We have 2 tiers available to support the show. We would really appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, subscribe when you're so you're then notified when we are live streaming, which is on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/intouchwithios, where you can watch the live show and the recording of the live show, as well as listen to past shows. Visit In Touch with iOS magazine on Flipboard, where many of the topics we discussed are flipped into that magazine. The link is in the show notes. You can subscribe to the show in your favorite podcatcher, including Pocket Cast, Overcast, Apple Podcasts, many others. But better yet, go to our website at intouchwithios.com, where all the links to all the ways to listen to us are there. I am Dave Ginsburg. You can find me on Mastodon at mastodon.cloud at DaveG65, or I'm also on Twitter at DaveG65. Guy Serle, thank you so much for being here this week. We had a blast, and it was a great show.
It's nice to be had.
Where can people find you?
You can find me. Email is guy@mymac.com. I am Mac Parrot and Vert Shark over on the Twitters. I am Mac Parrot over on Mastodon. Mac Parrot over on Counter Social, and if there's a network out there, I'm probably on it as Mac Parrot. There is the vertshark.com website that I still haven't updated in about 2 months. Shame on me. There's the Vert Shark YouTube channel, where I've got all the odds and all the vids. They're all right there, so you can see not only some of the weird stuff that Gaz and I do with the mymac.com podcast, but on occasion, I will also post a video of me in my car driving to work, just spouting out silly crap. That's what the show should have been called, instead of... What did I call that show? I'm losing my mind. It's like the mind is just
Guy's
like
Daily Drive.
Guy's Daily Drive. I should have called it Guy's Daily Crap. That's what it is.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Ben Rathing, thanks again for coming and on short notice. We miss you, Jeff Gamet, and I couldn't make it this week, but thanks for coming, Ben, and where can people find you?
You can find me at rathigtech.blogspot.com for my interim site. You can also find me at Ben Rathig on your social media of choice.
Thanks so much, Ben. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening. We really appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk again soon.